Hello and welcome. My name is Brian Oles, president and founder here at Black Speakers Network, and we are thrilled to have you join us for the Black Mental Health Speaker Series. As we dive into our theme, progressing from stigmas to solutions, we encourage you to contribute to the dialogue by participating in the chat. Now, as you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is a time to spotlight the importance of mental health, especially within the Black community. As we come together for these enlightening discussions, we hope to raise awareness, foster understanding, and contribute to the journey of emotional wellness for us all. This speaker series is broken into 6 parts, divided into 3 sessions, airing each day. So, no matter what part you're joining us for, we encourage you to go ahead and watch the entire series. You definitely don't want to leave anything on the table. The speakers you're about to hear from are leading and emerging experts as well as advocates in the mental health and wellness space. Each speaker is also a proud member of Black Speakers Network. We will be talking about very important issues today. So before we begin, I want to ask you to go ahead and spread the word to your family, friends, people in your community, networks, companies that should be a part of this conversation. You can click the share button or simply just share the link and invite folks into the conversation. A few final notes before we get started. Number one, the speaker series is just one of hundreds of speaking opportunities shared across the Black Speakers Network ecosystem. So if you are a current or aspiring speaker looking for your next stage, I want to invite you to learn more. You can head over to blackspeakersnetwork.com/join. And on the other hand, if you are a meeting planner, conference or event organizer, or a host, and you're looking for the perfect speaker for your next event, I would love to connect with you as well. You can browse, find our online speakers directory, or submit a speaker request for your next event by using the links in the description for this video. Now, that out the way, let's go ahead and get kicked off. Thank you so much again for being here and joining us on this journey, and welcome to the Black Mental Health Speaker Series. Let's go.
Hey everybody, this is Adrienne Charleston with Butterfly Flow Counseling, and today I'm going to talk to you about mind, body, and spirit. And a lot of people wondering, like, why is it important, for your mind, body, and spirit? Like, many don't understand how we are connected to ourselves and others. Some call it energy, some call it vibes, some call it a feeling. It is our spirit. It's our intuition, our inner guide. It also serves as our inner dialogue. Many have a negative dialogue and they feel they can't change it. They feel this is who they are and the words coming to them are true. Now, what if I tell you you can change that dialogue? What if you are in control of what you tell yourself? This is where your mind comes in. Your mind is stronger than you believe it is, and you are in control of it. You are in control of your thoughts and what you tell yourself. But first, you got to believe it. I'm going to be honest with you and let you know it takes time, work, and practice. Just know it can be done. There's an exercise that I do with my clients where I have them write out the negative thoughts, like, because a lot of people say there's a dialogue that goes on inside their head that's telling them all the things that they can't, or all the things that they're not, and all the things that's not going to happen. So I ask them to write down that dialogue. And normally the dialogue is the same for that person. Like, it doesn't change. It's the same dialogue daily. So write it out. Write that dialogue out that you're telling yourself. And then the next thing I want you to do is write out where it came from. 9 times out of 10, it didn't come from you. Those thoughts came from people who thought they were helping you, people who love you, people who thought they were giving the best for you. But sometimes these things can hinder you and they don't even know it. And sometimes you don't know it until now. So let's write that out and see what can be changed about it. Now that we have that dialogue written out and we realize that it didn't come from you, write out all the good facts about yourself. Write down how far you've come, what you've accomplished, the things that you like about yourself, the things that you've done for yourself, and the things that you've done for other people that have been accomplishments for you. Now, write all that out, write all those out, write out all the positive things about you. And then make sure you tell yourself those things daily. I do a thing called mirror work, and this is part of it, telling yourself good things about yourself. Because as you are changing the mind with positive things, you start feeding yourself those positive things. And those positive things feed the spirit. And now you can start going to your spirit, your intuition, the energy and the vibes that you get, and you can begin to trust it. Because guess what? You're training it now. It's not being trained from things from other people. It's being trained by you, by showing it who you are, realizing who you are, and knowing who you are, and loving the person that you are. Now, you're probably wondering, where does the body come in? I started by saying that we are all connected, and we are most connected to ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. In this, we have to take care of the body that is with us on this journey. Have you ever noticed that, when you're feeling hungry, and you get irritable and you can't think right sometimes, and they have a whole word for it, they call it hangry. So you ever been hangry, and then you're like, oh my goodness, like you can't think straight and you're upset, and that's just showing you how our mind and our body is connected. Like even small things going on in our body can affect our mind. And and I say small things. For some people, being hungry is a big thing. So so I do understand. But in that is just showing you how we're connected. So I will ask you to take care of your body. So take care of yourself the best way you can. I advise people to move. I don't go into saying, run a marathon or get out there and lift a bunch of weights or do all of these things. I'm just asking you to move. Me personally, I like to dance. Dancing is movement. It gets you out, it gets you moving, it gets you moving parts of your body. And I advise you to walk if you can, get out there, skate, do something, some type of movement. Move your arms. They have chair exercises, that they have exercises where, for people who aren't able to be fully mobile, they can do sitting down, do whatever you can to move your body, because that movement gets the blood flowing, and that blood flow gets your brain flow, and everything is flowing all together and moving. So, yeah, because we're all connected. Now, going to the doctor for your physical health is as important as seeing someone for your mental health. And and as important as increasing your spiritual health. This is because we were all connected. As you work on these three aspects of you, more things in your life fall into place. And you will see that as and a lot of times people recognize it just by getting two together. Sometimes if you can get your mind and your spirit together, your body will follow. Sometimes when you get your body and your mind together, your spirit will follow. Definitely, if you once you get your thoughts together and start feeding your spirit positive things about you, everything else will fall into place. You'll start trusting yourself more. You will start taking better care of yourself. You will start loving yourself more, because all of this mind, body, and spirit, I bet a lot of these things that I'm saying to you, you're already doing for somebody else. Why not do it for you? Why not make you a better you? Why not take better care of yourself? And people always say, you can't take care of other people if you can't take care of yourself, or you can't pour from an empty cup. And guess what? All of that is true. People come to me empty and dejected because they've taken care of everyone in their life. And I ask them, what have you done for you? And they look bewildered, because sometimes people don't realize that they can do for you themselves. You can do for you. Love can come from you into you, just like you're giving love to everybody else. And that feeds your spirit. So a little quick exercise I want you to do for your spirit today. I want you to look in the mirror, look in your face, look yourself in your eyes and say, I like you. And then say, I love you. And then I want you to thank you. I want you to thank your mind, your body, and spirit for getting you this far. And then let's see what the next years are going to do for us once you start feeding into your mind, body, and spirit. Because once they're all working together, you're going to feel like you can fly like the butterfly, because that's what it feels like. So thank y'all for watching Mind, Body, and Spirit today with Adrienne Charleston. You want to follow me? You can follow me, AC Butterfly Flow, on IG. You can find me on Facebook, Adrienne Charleston. I have a free PDF you can get, 6 anxiety alleviating ways of the butterfly. You can find it on my website at www.adrienne-charleston.com. And when you sign up for my newsletter, it is free. And yeah, hope to see you all out in the social universe very soon. Love y'all. Bye.
Nothing is more powerful than you. Do you believe that? Black is beautiful. Black is bold. Black is brilliant. And it's riddled with trauma. Ingrained in our blackness are obstacles that make us natural overcomers. But how do we protect our mental health and well-being while navigating the journey of career, business, social, and home life? Today, we're going to explore the role of spirituality in promoting Black mental health and well-being through the lens of faith in action. I'm Artisha T. Boulding, and I motivate women and entrepreneurs to birth their business, book, or brand. Through transformational coaching, I ensure they are no longer stuck in life, but thriving in success that's aligned with their passion and purpose. In February, I spoke with our BSN family and guests about the importance of soul care. In March, I spoke about mastering your plan in order to have a beautifully executed life. Today, I want to bring together those two schools of thought, and I'm going to speak to you about the role that spirituality plays in promoting Black mental health and well-being. First things first, when I talk about spirituality, I mean Jesus. Jesus is my jam, and I invite you to party with me, okay? He is the master of the plan. I'm an ordained minister, a certified life coach, a best-selling author, a wife, and fur mom. And I don't just talk and teach about faith. I am a living testimony. My faith and my spiritual family saved my life 5 years ago. Mother's Day 2018, I was sitting in a recliner in my mother's living room, slipping into a coma. I was in a fight for my life and my mind. I didn't know it at the time, but I was experiencing congestive heart failure and brain hypoxia, which is a type of psychosis. I had fallen into a depression and had no interest in continuing life as I knew it. At the time, I believed heaven was my only escape. After a crazy medical crisis and hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, I sit here today, in my right mind because of the prayers and support of a faithful few, and because I put my faith into action. I've been a woman of action ever since. In fact, I created a tool full of encouraging minders and faith builders that I'll share with you at the end. If you are going to have joy and live a full, purpose-driven life, you're going to have to run your life like a business. Church, yes, even the Black church, is run like a business. When it comes to game time, and by that I mean Sunday morning, everything is in place to make you feel welcome and free, to sing your heart happy and light your soul on fire. But there are teams of people with systems in place to make that happen. When it's done right, the pastor or the CEO of the church has the final sign-off on decisions, but he or she delegates to leaders to get things done. That's your first lesson. Build your own advisory board. Take some of the pressure off yourself by having to make all of the decisions alone. It's one thing to decide your dinner for tonight, or what you're going to wear to work tomorrow, or even your hairstyle or haircut for next week. But major life decisions require wise counsel. In fact, the Bible tells us there is safety in having many advisors. Financing a car, purchasing a home, continuing in a long-term relationship, changing careers, going back to school, all of these things need to be properly weighed and balanced, as well as aligned. Spiritual leaders can provide that honest voice with sound advice on how to move forward. The church is a great place to start to gather wisdom from folks who've already been there, done that, and can tell you how to avoid the pitfalls. Now, this isn't to relinquish any autonomy or agency you have over yourself. This is actually a step to build confidence and support in achieving milestones in your life, so as not to create anxiety or a defeatist mindset. Now, I know you like the sound of that. I think I got your wheels turning. So stick around until the end, and I'll tell you about how you can put action to your faith and experience more health and wellness mentally and spiritually. So let's rock this thing. The next point I want to make is not for individuals, but for Black churches as a whole in Black communities. According to the American Psychiatric Association, only 1 in 3 Black Americans who need mental health care receives it. In addition, Black people with mental illness, particularly psychoses, are more likely to be jailed than members of any other racial or ethnic group with similar conditions. The church is positioned to be a part of the solution. Black churches and outside agencies benefit from successful collaborations. Healthcare agencies must be given permission to work with Black churches from their leaders as well as their membership. Mental health professionals have better success when they respectfully become an active member of the community they serve. Establishing a trusting relationship provides a foundation for continued conversation, where healthcare workers can learn culturally appropriate outreach methods within the context of the Black church. I want to close by saying I firmly believe in the power of prayer. I believe that expressing gratitude and making heartfelt requests from God is needful and impactful. What takes that impact to the next level, though, is preparing your mind to receive the answer to your prayer and your eyes to see the answer to your prayer. Meeting with a licensed professional therapist may be your answer. Taking medication and making lifestyle changes may be your answer. The role of spiritual leaders, especially in the Black church, has to now be to support the wholeness of its people, meaning mental health challenges aren't just swept under the rug and folks aren't just expected to pray it away. Now, because you gave me your attention today and spent this entire time with me, I want to give you the opportunity to have a special ebook I wrote called Peace Over Panic. And again, it's full of encouraging reminders and faith builders that will promote your spiritual, mental outlook and well-being. Just go to artishabolding.com, scroll down to the contact section, fill in the information there with the note BSN gift, and I'll be sure to get you your very own copy. And remember, faith with action will get your work, well-being well underway.
Hello, my name is BreYanna Mitriece. And what we don't know, we can't heal. But once we are aware of our pain and our trauma and harmful beliefs and ideologies, it is our responsibility to then begin to heal. Growing up in my community, the only form of discipline that I knew of was to get spankings. That was seen to be the best mode in order to raise respectful children. People often spout out, spare the rod, spoil the child. And children were literally spanked for anything. In my home, my mother, she did spank me and my brothers, but I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that I was spanked. And my father, he didn't do any spanking. And so because of growing up in this particular community and having this deep rooted belief that physical discipline was the only way, when I became a mom to my daughters, that was the way that I disciplined them when I felt that they made mistakes. But there was a turning point for me when I was taking a course in college called Guiding the Child. And I learned so much in that class about true forms of discipline and how you can guide and teach your child without having to inflict pain on them in the form of physical discipline and in the form of hitting them. And then when I was hitting my children, it just didn't feel right in my spirit to have to inflict pain in order to teach them. And so I had made a decision within myself that I wanted to show up differently for my children. And that is how I began to do the intergenerational healing that I'm going to speak about today. So I embarked on this journey of parenting my children differently. I didn't ask for permission. I didn't get anybody's input because I knew in order for me to raise healthy, happy, and whole children, it started with me. A lot of the times we see parenting about the child, but parenting has a lot to do with the parent and how we respond and react to our children and their needs and their wants and the things that they do developmentally. So when I embarked on the journey of what we know today as gentle parenting, I did away with hitting them. And gentle parenting takes work. A lot of people don't believe that it's work. They think of permissive parenting, and that is no discipline at all. But gentle parenting is discipline through teaching, through modeling, and through teaching our children what it looks like to be healthy people, and that require us to also do our own healing. So it is so important for us to learn that we can heal. We can heal ourselves and we can raise healthy children through what I like to call gentle parenting and or conscious parenting. So I'm going to give you 6 ways in which gentle parenting or conscious parenting can contribute to intergenerational healing. Number 1, it allows us to break free from harsh parenting, right? We no longer have to joke about being hit with objects like switches, books, shoes. We do away with harsh parenting, but instead we opt for more of an empathetic and respectful form of parenting. We are not trying to disempower our children, but we want to empower our children by offering them love and understanding and empathy. We realize that even though these are our children, they are not our property. We do not own them. And so we don't have the right to inflict pain on them by hitting them, because they do not belong to us in that sense. They are not our property, but they are gifts to us that we must develop in appropriate ways. And so when we do away with harsh parenting, that is allowing us to begin to break the cycle of the harmful ideologies and belief that we carry with us, that children must be hit in order to be raised correctly. Number 2, gentle or conscious parenting promotes emotional trust and connection. When we are giving the children the space to feel, without telling them, if you cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry about, but they understand that they can cry, they can be angry, they can be saddened, they can have a range of emotions, and they can trust us with their emotions, we build a stronger emotional bond and connection. When they understand that they can ask questions, that they can have boundaries, that they can say no, that they can be free, it allows them to trust us and allows us to build a solid emotional foundation with our children, thus allowing us to heal those beliefs around children saying no or children having feelings. Number 3, it encourages open communication. It allows children to feel free in having healthy dialogue with their parents, being able to ask questions, being able to challenge certain things, and it gives them the opportunity to truly be seen and heard, that they know that they can express their emotions, they have a space to process their emotions and their experiences without being ridiculed, without it being trivialized, and without being dismissed. Next, number 4, we are empowering children's autonomy. When we allow children to be human beings and see them as human beings outside of our children, or we see them as their own individual selves, then we allow them to make age appropriate decisions. We foster individuality. We foster their creativity. We allow them to be children. We treat them as such without having these high demands on them to be emotionally intelligent or to behave like adults. We understand that children have a range of emotions, and it's up to us as parents through our communication that we model before them to show them what that dialogue looks like when they're upset, when they're sad, when they're happy, and etc. Number 5, it piggybacks off number 4, but we model healthy relationship dynamics. Like we all know growing up, you heard maybe your parents said or parents say, don't do what I do what I say. And we know that never works. It's about your children modeling what you do. And so it's not just about what you say, but it's aligning your behaviors to that as well, because children model what they see. So it's about you having healthy communication with those around you, having that healthy dialogue with your child. It is about being patient and controlling your emotions if you want them to learn how to control their emotions. It is about open communication. It's about empathy. It is about cooperation. And when you show your children this, that is how they are also able to build and sustain healthy, quality relationships in the future. And you teach them how to make choices, not from a place of fear, but from a place of knowing what they want for themselves, because they want to show up in a healthy way. They want to be better people, etc. And lastly, number 6, addressing generational trauma. Intergenerational healing often addresses the trauma, the pain that's been passed down through the family lines. So conscious parenting and or gentle parenting acknowledges that trauma and the impact that it may have on us, our children, and our families, and seek to create a healing environment that prioritizes our emotional well-being, that fosters the support and resilience. That is why it's important for us to create a loving and secure environment where our children can be whole, we as parents can be whole, thus allowing healing to take place from one generation to another. So, Intergenerational healing does not happen overnight and may need more support to help you heal. And you can do that in the form of therapy, getting a counselor, and someone to give you the tools that you need to show up better for yourself so that you can become a better parent for your children. So it is important for us to understand that we can make the difference. Just because our generations before us done it, and once we recognize that what they've done does not work, we can begin to make the necessary changes so that we can see that the generation after us are healthy, happy, and whole people. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today.
Hello, and welcome to my presentation. What just happened? Microaggressions and mental health. I always start with this question. Did you know that microaggressions can impact us both mentally and physically? Most people don't realize that microaggressions have that impact on us and think that it's just something that happens and then we move on and we go in passing. But in reality, it does impact us both mentally and physically. And I hope to give you a better overview of that during this presentation. But before we do that, I want to at least introduce myself. So, my name is Brittany A. Johnson, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I've been a licensed therapist for over 10 years, and I have spent the majority of my career working with people with anxiety and other forms of trauma. I am an approved consultant and a certified EMDR therapist. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's a type of therapy that I have found beneficial for every client, regardless of their demographic, to be beneficial and helpful to remove old past traumas that are causing you to be triggered and things of that nature. And as I mentioned, I've been a therapist for over 10 years, and I am passionate about all things mental health, um, breaking the stigma, making sure there's access to quality mental health. But I am specifically, or technically, or whatever word you want to put there, passionate about working on attachment and relational trauma, and also that racial trauma, especially looking at how microaggressions impact us and cause racial trauma. So, what are microaggressions? What's the definition that we're going to work from here? So, I like to work and bring up two definitions, and I am going to read these even though they're on your screen, just because it gives, I can add some different points in there. So, based on Oxford Dictionary, it's that statement, action, or incident that is either indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group, such as racial or ethnic minorities. Now, this definition sounds good, but this definition has been proven, air quote, that it doesn't often get justice if you are experiencing a microaggression because people will say, well, I'm not discriminating against you. And so the definition I really like to work from is Dr. Pierce, his 1970 definition, which is commonplace, daily, verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional. And that intentional or unintentional is very important because oftentimes people will say, well, that wasn't what I intended. I didn't mean it that way. And it, for our brains and bodies, it doesn't matter. If you are doing or making one of these slights, it is causing the environment to be, it's a derogatory. It brings up a negative attitude. It brings up stigmas against marginalized groups. And so for this presentation, I am going to be focusing on the race and ethnic minorities, specifically looking at Black and Brown Americans. And so, in terms of microaggressions, there are three categories that I like to work from when I talk about microaggressions. So, the micro assaults, those are being called a derogatory name. So, commonly we know that is being called the N word with the hard ER, or being called something else that lets you know that they are talking about your skin tone and intentionally being derogatory towards you, or statements like you're kind, or things that include things like that, that again, try to tell you that you are less than or not the same as this other person. And so we call those micro assaults, but I really like to call those straight assaults because to me, that is a verbal assault when you call someone out of their name or you refer to someone, by their skin tone or other things like that. The next one down are those micro insults. And so those are those statements where people, and we've seen this and experienced this, or they'll say things like, if your kind would just, and typically it's, if your kind would work harder, if your kind would not be lazy, if your kind would study, if your kind would pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Statements like that often get made, and those are those micro insults, right? They are intentionally trying to insult you, or but they will say it's unintentional. Or one of my favorites, not really, but you are smart for a black or brown person, or you are articulate for a black or brown person, or you are well dressed or well put together for a black or brown person. Those are those micro insults. And then the micro invalidations are typically the ones based on that Oxford dictionary. They're a little bit harder to prove that they are some type of form of discrimination. So it's when people make statements like, I don't see color, or we're all the same here. And I remember experiencing someone telling me that they don't see color, and I had to stop her right in her tracks and say, you know what? If you don't see color, then that means you don't see me. Because regardless to anything else, the first thing that you will see and notice about me is that I have brown skin. No, it may not be as brown as others or as light as others, but my skin is still brown. And so, in order to see me, I need you to see my color. Or that all the thing that we're all the same here, right? So you'll hear that in corporate settings often. We're all the same here. We don't discriminate. We don't choose and judge and things like that. But you know that your coworkers are making statements in meetings or doing certain behaviors that you have been called into the office for. Or you notice that you're getting called in, your work's being questioned, you're having to do a lot more proving that you deserve to be there when other people don't. Those are micro invalidations. And so I mentioned in the beginning that microaggressions impact our brains and our bodies. So the way that microaggressions impact our brain is that it triggers our brain's fight, flight, or freeze system. Now, I do have a whole presentation where I go into the depths about talking about brain and the impacts of microaggressions on the brain. But for this, I just want to give you a little bit of a taste or an overview. So what I mean by it triggers that fight, flight, or freeze, I mean that flight means I got to get out of here. I've got to end this conversation. I need to avoid this person. I don't want to deal with them. Fight, typically, we're looking at those verbals. Yes, there have been some actual physical fighting that has occurred, but typically we're talking about that verbal responding, like, what did you just say? Or, well, that was racist, things like that. That can be that fight system. And then freeze is, like the title says, what just happened, right? So you kind of freeze in place. The other way it impacts our brains is that it fires the signals for our brain to both listen and to protect. So our brains are wired that if someone is saying something nice or in a sweet tone or a calm manner, that our brains are triggering us to kind of keep our guards down, be relaxed. But if you're hearing words that trigger your brain to do the other part, which is to protect, then it's really hard to decide what's going on. And you end up spending a lot of time trying to kind of figure out what was happening. And so that's how it triggers that part of your brain. And then again, it also just kind of triggers the entire automatic nervous system. So those are all the working parts of your brain that tell your brain and body how to respond to conversations, to potential threats, to welcoming situations, and things like that. In terms of the body, so experiencing microaggressions over time has been known to cause fatigue and or exhaustion. So that looks like you've been at work all week or all day. You've had to have meetings with people that constantly are making comments that you know have a racial undertone, but no one is making any comments about it. No one is correcting them. The boss is not stopping it. I mean, you're just kind of there dealing with it and kind of holding it all in all day because you know you want to keep your job, or you know that you may have the tendency to fight, and then it becomes, that angry black woman or aggressive black man or angry black person. It also has been known to cause body aches and headaches, right? So holding those things in, trying not to say what you want to say, we know that typically can cause us to have headaches and body aches because all the tension that we have around trying not to say things. And it is starting to be more research is being done that trauma can, impact medical conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and other autoimmune disorders. Racial trauma and microaggressions are no different. They also have the tendency to impact us in that way as well. And so it's been said that microaggressions are often like experiencing a million little paper cuts. And so repeating this repeated experiences of microaggressions, it will lead to racial trauma. So imagine continually to get cut, and you get cut and you get cut and you get cut. Over time, the cut doesn't have time to heal, and now it's a bigger wound. The same thing happens when we think about microaggressions and racial trauma. and the symptoms have been known to be the same, that come up with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what can we do? So we do know that we can do body regulation activities. We also can do some daily routines to kind of decompress, and connecting with other people of color, other Black Americans, where you're not going to talk about the experiences in detail, but you're going to join in and connect so that you have common community to be able to see yourself in the beautiful light that you are. And so, since microaggressions are often unavoidable, it's very important that you do have that daily routine where you're taking care of yourself each day so that, again, you can minimize the impact of racial of microaggressions so that it does not lead to to racial trauma. Sorry about that. And so I want to thank you for attending my presentation, and welcome you to follow me on all of the socials listed on the screen. Have a good one.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Hill, CEO and founder of Holistic Living Consulting, where we transform the physical, emotional, and spiritual health of Black women. Today, we'll be delving into what's the 411. If you grew up in the 90s, you remember Mary J. Blige, what's the 411? Today, we'll be talking about the 411 in mental wellness among entrepreneurs. A study found that 72% of entrepreneurs are affected by mental health issues, and that's in comparison to 48% of those who aren't entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs often juggle many responsibilities, which can increase our stress levels. We're building a business, a speaking career, and taking care of loved ones. It's easy to think there isn't enough time to prioritize your well-being. The only problem is by failing to have no plan in place for your emotional or mental health, you are setting yourself up for destruction. So today, you will walk away with 3 coping mechanisms that will set the foundation for your emotional and mental well-being. So the first thing you're going to do in laying that foundation is get some boundaries, set some boundaries, have a firm start and stop time for work. Communicate your working hours with clients and colleagues. Now, here's something I can almost guarantee you that someone will test you and attempt to contact you outside those scheduled hours. Remember, we teach people how to interact with us, and stay committed to giving yourself the time you deserve for self-care. All right, so you got that boundary foundation laid. The next thing you're adding on top of that is some stress relief activities. One thing that we know that plays a significant role in our stress levels is smell. Studies have shown that smell impacts our mood. So during the day, placing drops of essential oils like peppermint, lavender into a diffuser will positively impact your mood. Another thing that's really, really good in lowering those stress levels, plan one positive activity before you start your day. Just one thing you do before you even step on ground, whether it's affirmations, yoga, journaling, finding a way to begin your day in a serene and balanced mood. Just as important in starting your day in Zen is what I like to call it, ending your day as well in a place of tranquility. So whether it's taking a long hot soak at the end of the day, turning your bathroom into a spa, lighting some candles, grabbing your favorite body care products, maybe a sugar scrub or a natural soap, whatever's your favorite. Hint, if you do use CBD, um, CBD would be great to add to the end of your day regimen, because we do know CBD has been proven effective for decreasing stress, lowering feelings of anxiousness, as well as depression. So CBD can definitely be part of your regimen, not in just your emotional and mental well-being. I'm sure you'll find it effective in your physical health as well, because it does help with boosting that immune system. And we know that has been a hot topic for some time now. So you got that firm foundation with setting your boundaries. You got some stress relief activities. The third thing that will add to the top of your foundation is focusing on your nutrition. Because here's the thing, every time we put anything into our mouth, there is a chance that we can improve our emotional, mental wellness. So, mixing up your diet, whether you're adding more green tea, walnuts, pistachios, oatmeal, to get more of those feel good hormones into your system. Notice that a couple of those things, like the walnuts, pistachios, that's something you can have right at your desk as a healthy snack that will definitely make a difference in your mood when done consistently and regularly. Also, keep in mind, after 7, no caffeine. Is saying goodbye to the caffeine after 7 o'clock. Definitely impacts your mood, as well as helps you in getting a better night of sleep that will definitely make a difference in your emotional and mental health. Your body is a temple. I know we hear that a lot, and sometimes it can sound cliche, but when you start behaving like it's a temple, living a healthy life isn't that hard. Whether you choose to meal prep or order healthy meals, there is no reason why you should be continually putting garbage in your mouth. Whether you're working at the desk, working hard, and work so long that you forget lunch, and so you're starving and you just go to the nearest fast food. If you're doing this every single day, this temple becomes full of garbage and gunk. Make sure your worst enemy isn't who you see in the mirror. I would love for us to keep this conversation going. I would love to hear from you. If you would just take a few minutes to complete a survey at talk.ac/Cassandra Hill, talk.ac/Cassandra Hill. And there, I would love to hear your feedback. If you do have any questions, be sure to include that as well. As always, I'm wishing you much health, much happiness. Until next time.
Hi, everyone. I am Chantal Cotton Gaines, and I'm your excellence enhancer. And I help you on your pathway to peace as you shine in your excellence. In this session, we are going to talk about how you can break the intergenerational cycle of trauma, particularly in Black and Brown families. As of late, Tasha Cobbs Leonard's song, Break Every Chain, has been resonating with me. Regardless of your faith, you've got to let those words hit your spirit. Break every chain. But what does that even mean? Break what chains and what part of your life? For me, my chain breaking started when I asked myself, what else am I called to do? And why do I feel so distant from it? The answers received focused on intergenerational healing. Growing up in Flint, Michigan, I remember we always locked our car doors, never left valuables in the car, and seldom did we tell anyone what we were doing until after we did it. Why? I guess there was some looming concern that someone would take something that didn't belong to them. I never asked why, it just was. I didn't know that this wasn't everyone's reality until many years later when I met kids from the Flint suburbs who never locked their car doors unless they were in Flint, and they seldom even locked their homes. I realized that the sheer location of my adolescence added undue stress to my childhood mind that others didn't have mental parking spaces for. This had a lasting impact on me. What realities existed in your community that had lasting impacts on you? Was it danger or legal activities, family drama, teenage pregnancies, loss of peers to incarceration, or worse? Maybe it was seeing frequent failure, especially in the people who most needed success. Whatever it was, you are not stuck with it forever. You have grown up and can now better protect yourself. Dr. Joy DeGruy wrote the book, The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. She essentially describes it as the residual impacts of trauma on African American communities throughout the U.S. and the diaspora. Her book focuses on how an oppressive past has influenced the present and how we can build upon the strengths gained from the past in order to heal from injuries both past and present. Let's unpack that. My interpretation is not that we are victims or coming from a place behind anyone else. My understanding of her research is that it is acknowledging that prior harms don't just fade. Can't sweep it under the rug. Prior harms show up in our daily living. They impact how we raise our children. They impact how our children choose to perform their ways of daily living as children and adults, and eventually parents. Beyond environmental influences and broader historical influences, we also have situations happening within our immediate households. For me, I experienced the death of my father at almost age 16. He died by death by suicide. I have many questions for my father, but I will never get to ask him. I know he was a very hard worker. He was kind and well-liked. I know he also struggled with depression and alcohol addiction and lived with that sadness. As the youngest of 4 children, I didn't see all of his silly moments, but I saw enough of them. Yet, while seeing the hard times, I also saw him show up at baseball games. He taught me how to wash a car, play chess. I had a great relationship with my father, and yet I noticed his struggles even as a child. What does it do to the mind of a child to watch one of their mentors, their parents, struggle with addiction? What does it do to a child to see their parent fade away in death? What does it do to a child to know that their parent chose that fate instead of them? I can't speak for every child, but I can speak for myself that it confused me. I had the benefit of seeing my father the day before he died, and I saw him in a storm seeking peace. I wanted to help him, but I didn't know how to help him while also protecting my mother, who means the world to me too. I unknowingly took on all the trauma of my father's addiction and death and did my best to stuff it down like an overpacked suitcase. I didn't realize I had absorbed any of that hurt and pain until I became a parent myself. And I realized it wasn't meant to be packed away. I needed help. I started to ask myself, why was I responding in the way I was responding to myself and my child? I was tired, like beyond normal parent tired. And I felt like I was failing myself and that too much was being asked of me as a parent. I realized that I had healing and growing to do. I had chains to break in order to reroute myself and my children to a different path. So, what did I do? I asked for help. I started therapy, and it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns for me in finding a therapist. The first one I had was actually before I had children, when I knew I needed something, some kind of help, but didn't know exactly what. I found a therapist about 10 years ago through my employer. She was a big, tall woman, a different background than me, and I call her Hilda. Hilda asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I told her that my father had died, death by suicide, and I was bawling a big, ugly cry. My spirit needed that release. And after I finished my ugly cry, Hilda asked me the most basic question that made it clear to me she did not understand or appreciate the complexities of life as an African American. I appreciated Hilda's time, but I could feel part of my spirit disappointed that seeking help didn't work. So time passed after seeing Hilda, and then about 7 years later, after I'd become a mother and realized I hadn't addressed any of this trauma, I sought help again. But this time, I did research to find a Black woman therapist because I didn't want to pay to explain to someone what it was like being a Black woman in America who has experienced trauma. I sought someone who understood Dr. DeGroo's post-traumatic slave syndrome and started from the place that I was at and could help me build from there. And I'm so grateful that I did. Next, I told my story. A series of interactions led me to a writing workshop with Beth Dunnington, which led me to her performing the story Survivor Story Show. I didn't want to do a lot of dialogue or monologue, but I love writing. And so I signed up for the survival stories. The writing prompts that afternoon led me to write down the details of the last days of my father's life. Why is this noteworthy? Because though I often journaled as a child and young adult, when I look back at all of my journals surrounding Mother's Day weekend 2002 when my father died, the only journal entry is the poem that I wrote for the back of his eulogy program. Nothing else. I kept all the hard details of the last days of his life packed in for 20 years until that afternoon in that writing workshop with Beth. I had an ugly cry again, and while reading it. And then I had to edit it, rehearse it, and perform it in 2 shows in front of an audience. Talk about hard. After the first performance, I finished, I turned off my camera, muted my mic, and I laid on the floor bawling for a good 5 minutes. I held it in for 20 years. 20 years. And I had finally gotten it out and let it go. It was so hard, but I did it. Next, I learned my family's story. I started interviewing people in my family, reading documents, etc. And because I'd sought help and told my story, I was finally beyond living in the sadness of losing my father and in a place to learn from it. So what does addressing intergenerational healing and breaking chains have to do with enhancing excellence? For me, it was grounding. I felt like a tree reaching new water sources and deepening my roots because I grew more knowledge of my family and me. In Black Panther, they ask, "Who are you?" And the answer is powerful and gives me goosebumps every time. When we learn our history and accept the less good stuff for what it is, and proudly wear the positive legacies, we stand in that power. I am Chantal Cotton Gaines, daughter of Janet and Jeff Cotton, parents who, albeit their circumstances and challenges arose and raised 4 powerful Black children who are pursuing our ancestors' wildest dreams. I knew some of this before, but now I stand stronger in my power, knowing that I get to tell our story. Standing in this power allows me to shine in my excellence and the glow of the village that raised me. Follow me on Instagram at Chantal CG. Follow me on Instagram at I am Chantal CG to learn more about upcoming opportunities and to hear other stories of healing intergenerational trauma. And I have tools available to help you learn more about your family history so you can continue growing in your healing journey with real information about your family. Join me. Don't leave excellence on the table by not embodying the full you. You know who you are, and you can break those intergenerational chains of trauma because you are great and you deserve to live in excellence.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Thornton, and I am so excited to explore a discussion around the unique mental health challenges faced by the Black community due to systemic racism, discrimination, and cultural barriers to access and care. Systemic racism casts its long shadow over the lives of Black people, inflicting profound wounds on our mental health. From the moment a Black person enters the world, they are thrust into a society where the color of their skin becomes a defining factor in their experiences, shaping perceptions, our opportunities or lack thereof, and our overall well-being. The effects of systemic racism on the mental health of Black people are in many cases extremely tragic. The constant exposure to discrimination, prejudice, microaggressions creates toxic environments and unsafe spaces that attack self-worth, self-belonging, and psychological well-being. It becomes a heavy burden to carry and one that weighs down the spirit and can easily diminish hopes and dreams. Finding the privilege to prioritize mental health can be extremely challenging due to these systemic barriers and lack of access to care. And Black people face disparities and other obstacles that cause them to shelve their health. Throughout their lives, many Black people face these barriers that impede their access to quality education, healthcare, housing, employment opportunities, and wealth building. These systemic inequities compound feelings of frustration, anger, and powerlessness, as many Black people and families find themselves trapped in cycles of disinclusion and limited upward mobility. And the cumulative impact of these stressors takes a toll on our mental health and leads to increased rates of anxiety, depression, and chronic stress. Systemic racism impact on the mental health of Black people is a painful reality, and it demands urgent attention and dismantling. It's a call for action for individuals and communities and institutions to confront and address the deep-rooted structures, the root causes that perpetuate inequality. And only through our efforts, increased understanding, empathy, and justice can we create a world where positive mental health and mental health treatment are accessible and where every single individual is free to thrive and be successful. I sincerely love talking about privilege because it's so eye-opening. I love to acknowledge that life is hard for everybody, for everyone. And I don't care what community you belong to or what your identity is or what you have experienced. Everyone has ups and downs. Everyone has challenges, and we have to acknowledge that. But in this conversation where we are talking about how Black people can have an increased tendency to shelve their health, it can absolutely be traced back to a lack of privilege. There has to be an acknowledgement of the additional crises that Black communities specifically experience that disrupt their ability and their privilege to prioritize their overall health and their mental health. When we look at the past few years, all of us have lived through this global pandemic, and I would assert that it's been difficult for everyone, right? But for Black people living with the barriers created by systemic racism, in addition to the pandemic, we've had to deal with significant economic crises in our communities. Whether people have lost their jobs, whether they were already underemployed, they've had situations maintaining income, or their income levels have decreased because of societal changes. Many people, even affluent people, have suffered greatly over the past few years. Where economic disparity and a racial wealth gap already existed for the Black community, though, this time has been especially hard. On top of that, for those who have dealt with racial injustice that has taken such a toll on our society and has worsened during the same time span, imagine throwing that stress on top of an already compromised situation. When you evaluate it, then you can really start to understand why some people have less privilege to prioritize their mental health. Visiting a healthcare provider requires a great degree of vulnerability. Specifically, seeking mental health support can put you in a position to have to share intimately personal details and traumas. And that alone can dissuade many people from getting mental health care and treatment. And with that level of having to be vulnerable, a lot of times people choose to suffer in silence instead of getting help. But add to that an experience where you feel that healthcare professionals are marginalizing you. They aren't listening to you, specifically because they don't identify with you. Add to that an experience where they're being dismissive of your questions or perhaps brushing off your concerns. And this is a reality for many patients who are members of communities that are disenfranchised. What we do know is that people don't become therapists and don't become counselors to be harmful and discriminatory. They don't necessarily become psychologists and psychiatrists to leave people out and to be dismissive. But what happens is our human nature and what we innately are taught as we grow and develop in society seeps into everything we do. And so mental health providers are by nature, for what they've signed up to do, there to help people, but they are also people who experience and live in their own unconscious bias, and it causes them to fall short. And Black people frequently suffer the harm in these settings because of this bias. Then there are also stigmas in communities of color that lead patients away from mental health care and to choose between faith and care. And most of us in the Black community can acknowledge that there's a tradition that if something's horribly wrong in your life, that you, your family, and your friends, and the people in your community will tell you to pray about it. And it's been very difficult in our community over the years to create an understanding that you can both pray and seek help, and they're not mutually exclusive. Additionally, culturally, we're not always willing to share publicly what we believe should stay within the walls of our family homes. I can remember a time in my own experience where I was struggling to deal with my parents' divorce. And prior to walking into the therapy session, my mother looked at me and said, "Don't you tell this woman any of our business." Many patients of color also suffer in silence, and many equate the need for mental health care and mental health support with weakness or emasculation. We're less likely to seek support because often in the Black community, seeking support and seeking help and being vulnerable is equated with weakness. Also, Black people face discrimination regularly, even at the doctor's office. Imagine that. And even upon pursuing mental health support, these layers of discrimination become a deterrent for Black people in establishing trust in the treatment settings. And overcoming the intersection of racism and needing to seek mental health support can be challenging for Black people, but there are strategies and approaches that can help us navigate these obstacles. Trust your gut. That's the number one rule. If it doesn't feel right, and this is for anyone, whether it's an equity issue or you're just a patient who seeks out mental health support and you don't feel quite right or comfortable, trust your gut. If you feel dismissed, if you feel like you weren't being heard or you were being talked over, are you feeling judged in that setting? Are you suspecting any kind of dismissiveness or bias? Do you not feel respected? Don't hesitate. Move on to someone else. It is very important that as you seek the support you need, you're in an environment where you feel comfortable and where you feel that it is a good fit. The second strategy is to prioritize yourself. And I know this is easier said than done. In communities of color, people are often trained to put the needs of other people before their own. We take care of our family members, and that's not exclusive to Black communities, but specifically in Black communities, communities of color, and immigrant communities, there's a heavy load of familial responsibility. And not just for our immediate family, we take care of our community. And so we can get into a rut of making sure that we're taking care of everyone else and we are not doing what we need to do for ourselves and letting the things and needs in our own lives and our own mental health slide. We also advise that you look for representation. Look for mental health professionals who have experience and training in working with diverse populations and diverse communities, including having an understanding of the unique challenges faced by Black people, Black individuals. Culturally competent therapists and providers can provide a safe space for exploring racial identity, discrimination, and the impact of racism on mental health. The ultimate goal is to get the best possible healthcare and outcome for your condition, of course, regardless of anyone's race, ethnicity, or any other identity. It really shouldn't matter where you go or who you see, but the goal is to get the best health outcome. And with where we are as a society, it is completely okay that you do what makes you feel most comfortable. And in that case, for a Black person, a person of color, that might include considering the benefits of same race or same ethnicity support. You can also build a supportive network, connect with others who've had similar experiences, and share the sense of understanding and empathy in your own community. Seek out organizations and support groups or online forums that provide spaces specifically for Black people to come together, share their stories, and support each other. Building a supportive network can provide a sense of validation, empowerment, and collective healing. We want to advocate speaking out, sharing experiences of racism and the impact that it has on your mental health. Speak out about it to raise awareness so that we can combat the stigma that exists around getting mental health care and support in the Black community. We want to seek mental health support and also realize and acknowledge that it requires a courageous step toward well-being. It's okay to not be okay. And Black people living in America have plenty of reasons to not be okay. So while systemic racism presents significant challenges, it's essential to remember that there are professionals, resources, and communities available to support and uplift Black people on their mental health journeys and to help us prioritize and step into our privilege to seek out mental health support. And while we continue to fight against systemic racism and reclaim our narratives and celebrate our heritage and advocate for systemic change, it's important that each of us remembers that we deserve access to mental health care that's respectful, supportive, and inclusive. Wishing you the best.
Hi, I am Cortiana Bellamy. I am a serial entrepreneur, self-development, business coach, and I am also a creative. I teach other creatives how to turn their gifts into profit. I walk creatives through the process of releasing suppressed memories, traumas, and personality traits through shadow work. Once the energy space is clear, a creative is able to fully create. Everything you see and feel was created from something. Something that was once nothing. Creating something out of nothing or combining materials to create something out of nothing is referred to as alchemy. Alchemy requires you to fully see your vision in order for it to manifest. Manifestation gets blurred and delayed due to blockages. Blockages that start from within us. We have all heard the saying, the mind is a powerful thing to waste. The subconscious mind is the beginning of all creation. The mind creates both negative and positive experiences. Some of us, more than others, are still creating those negative experiences in our reality. These negative experiences come as a thought first, then it manifests into our reality. As co-creators of this world, it is important for us to keep our energy space clear. So clear that we're able to produce the most innovative, life-changing, groundbreaking creations that anyone has ever seen. Our subconscious mind creates its own perception of the world. And those perceptions started as children. Our perception of the world was very different then than it is now. The only difference is some still are using the same perception that they developed as a child in their adult lives. Our perception can sometimes fool us into making choices that really don't align with our life. Our perception can trap us into toxic relationships. It can cause us to go into these karmic cycles and ultimately stops us from having those positive experiences in life. As a fellow creative, it was hard for me in the beginning to really fully get into my creative bag. I was suffocated by doubt and worry and fears and anxiety that ultimately started in my brain. Once I realized that I was becoming my biggest downfall, I had to go through a mind cleanse. I came across the word shadow work. And shadow work is a self-help tool that uses journal prompts to tap into the subconscious mind. When you have to answer the hard questions, it's pretty hard to lie to yourself. Shadow work allowed me to go through and clear out all of those blockages that was stopping me from producing to my fullest potential. I was able to go into the deepest parts of my subconscious mind that I had seemed to forgot about. Working through those blockages allowed for me to clear the space for creation to bloom. Empty the mental load. My mental health became more prevalent the older I got. Once I entered the real world, I forgot how important it was for me to check in with my mental. Our lives move so fast that we forget to check in at times. Being the oldest daughter, cashier server, college student, friend, hairstylist, online store owner, life became a little overwhelming, but we just keep going. Like most of us are taught to just keep going. Well, how about we reteach ourselves? Reteach ourselves to slow down. Reteach ourselves to breathe. Reteach ourselves to use healthy coping mechanisms such as meditation. Because when we don't, we create dysfunction. Dysfunction in my brain may look a little different in your brain. Dysfunction in my brain is continuous scrolling through the internet to get a little dopamine fix, or it's calling into work just because I don't have the energy today. Or dysfunction in me looks like laying in the bed, binge eating, overthinking about what is the real meaning of life. The dysfunction has no place in the process of creation. We all have the power to heal ourselves. The subconscious place is a very powerful, sometimes scary, sometimes dark place to be. But tap into the subconscious mind. Get down and dirty with your traumas. In order to maximize your potential, you have to be as light as a feather. So light that you're able to flow through any energy space unfazed. Shadow work became my safe haven. To this day, I still tap into shadow work and journal prompting. It allows me to get out of my head and into the real world. Shadow working and mind clearing was so effective for me that it allowed me to create multiple new products for my business. It allowed me to get out of my way and become my own motivational speaker. Shadow work allowed me to create 2 books in 1 year. Shadow work has put me in the position to be on track to making my first 6 figures in my business. Now, when I tell you I didn't see that, I mean I did, but the way that my mind worked and the things holding me back in life, it wouldn't have been possible. I had to remove all of that energy in order to make space for what is divinely for me. I hope all creatives can get out of their head and actually create unapologetically. We are the co-creators of this world, and we have to be putting out the best creations possible. So I ask all of you today to go get you a brand new clean journal. And in the first page, write out who you are. Understanding who you are is going to be the catalyst to your change. Understanding your wants, understanding your desires, understanding your blockages. Tap into the subconscious mind and watch the magic that is going to be created. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Crystal Joseph. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Maryland, a licensed professional counselor in Virginia, an approved clinical supervisor in both states. I'm also an author, and I am the CEO of Psych Your Mind. So today I want to talk to you about 3 tips, know before you go, when beginning your mental health journey. All right, so something in our field is called levels of care, okay, or levels of need. So based on what your need is the level of care that you are going to seek and search for. There are 5 main tiers in this level of care continuum. The highest level of care is inpatient. So that could be synonymous with inpatient hospitalization, such as a psychiatric facility, a psychiatric hospital, or a psych ward located within a major hospital. So that is the highest level of care. The second tier of this level of need or level of care is called residential. So these can be niche specific or specialty specific, so such as eating disorders, adolescents, adults, substance use, things of that nature. So people are there for about 30 to 90 days. And so they offer specific programming tied to the need of that client or patient. And you get the help you need in a very short-term / long-term modality. The third tier or third level on this continuum is partial hospitalization, or what we call PHP, and the last P stands for program. So a partial hospitalization program. This program is approximately 20 hours per week, and most times they include group therapy with other persons who have been admitted to this program. For those who do work or go to school, there is times and situations where you will not be able to work and or go to school due to the intensity of this program. So everything on tiers 1, 2, and 3, so everywhere from inpatient to residential to partial hospitalization, most times you will not be able to maintain gainful employment while you are admitted or attending these programs, okay? So this program is about 20 hours a week. It can be specialty specific, but most times it's more of a general setting and you are mixed in with other people with other needs. There are going to be group modalities facilitated for counseling and therapy, and then you may have an individual session with the therapist that is employed there. The fourth tier is intensive outpatient, and there's a P on the end, which stands for programs. So for short, it's IOP. So it's an intensive outpatient program. So this is the fourth tier of the continuum of level of care or level of need. Here, it's a little bit less intense, although the name suggests intensive. It's not quite 20 hours. Many people, such as adolescents, teenagers, or adults who attend this program are able to continue school and or maintain gainful employment while admitted to these programs. These programs can be niche specific, but they also have other specialties added on. You can have yoga. There can be an eating component and or demonstrations and classes for more optimum learning and skill set acquisition regarding coping skills for wellness and your mental health. All right, the last tier, the fifth tier of this continuum is outpatient. Okay, so this is where private practice sits. This is where I sit as a therapist. This is where community mental health clinics sit. This is where some combination of those things such as case management are concerned. So this is the fifth and lowest tier on the continuum, level of need, okay? So if you can maintain your coping skills and your life needs week to week, typically you would come into an outpatient setting to manage and process things that are going on in your world. So private practice, you come in, you sit on my couch, we discuss it, we process it, I see you next week. So that is the lowest level of need. So for need is also known as acuity. So based on your acuity, how acute your symptoms or your need is, that is going to determine the level of care or level of need that you seek out when you are starting your wellness journey and mental health journey. The second tip I have for know before you go is how to search for a therapist when you're searching for a therapist. It's not as simple as jumping on Google, because that can lead you in the wrong direction and or create frustration. So based on where you live, within a certain mile radius that you can choose, how far are you willing to drive for therapy? This also brings up another comment of, would you rather in person or do you want virtual? You need to know that depending on where you live is where the therapist can host and serve you. So I'm in the DMV area, DC metropolitan. I can get from Maryland to Virginia in less than 30 minutes. With that being said, sometimes the jurisdiction lines get a bit confusing of who is where and what is what. So because I am licensed to practice counseling only in Virginia and Maryland, I cannot see a person who lives in the District of Columbia unless they drive and come and sit on the couch in my Virginia or Maryland office at this time. So keep that in mind if you find someone you're interested in and you're thinking, okay, I want to send them an email or I want to call. Be mindful if they happen to turn you away, or explain that, hey, you know, I'm sorry, I can't see you, but here are some referrals. Another thing with contacting is calling versus emailing versus using web contact forms to get the therapist's attention that you are interested in. Okay, so depending on your preference, possibly some anxiety or nerves, or even the generation you grew up in, one method of contact outweighs the other, right? But I want to share with you that as a therapist, I do not sit in front of a phone and two screens like my corporate counterparts on a day-to-day basis. I am live in session for 50 to 60 minutes at a time and cannot always get to the phone. Some of us do have assistants, office managers, virtual assistants, and phone recording systems that will record your message and push it to us while we are in session. So keep that in mind if you're someone who likes to do phone calls, but also emails. Emails have a downside as well. So if you email us and say, for example, our server is down or there's some weird glitch or Mercury is in retrograde, there is going to be an issue where we may not receive your email. Please follow up. If 72 business hours have passed or 2 business days have passed and you haven't heard back from us, it's okay to follow up. Please follow up. And then the third method of contact is called a web contact form. Those are coded to push to the provider's email so that their admin team or they themselves as a therapist can see and respond back. Again, it's technology. Sometimes there's glitches, sometimes things filter incorrectly, even when we attempt to respond to you all via email or the web contact form processing. So please keep that in mind. Please bear with us, give us grace. We're human too, and we hope to serve you and get back to you as soon as we can. All right, so the third thing that I want to talk about is diagnosing an insurance. Many people choose to use their insurance and they treat it as a golden ticket or a I get everything free card, right? And that is not always the case. I want the community to understand that whenever you enact insurance and choose to use your insurance to cover 100% or partial percentage of the fees that you would owe a therapist, legally, I am required to diagnose you from day one. Now, if you are someone who wants to remain above the stigma, or say you have top secret clearances and you don't want your employer to know what you're going through as far as your mental health journey, many people will opt for a private pay option, okay? And so in a private pay setting, there's more of a conversation about the processing of what you're dealing with, psychosocial stressors, which are the things in your environment that are causing you to react the way you're reacting. In the mental health world, in the medical world, psychosocial stressors, those codes for billing, are not reimbursable. So if I were to say, okay, you're coming to me because you're in a hostile working environment, When I go to submit your claim for insurance, if you're using insurance, and I put Mr. Jones works in a hostile working environment, they're not going to reimburse me for services because I guess that's not mental health. I don't know. So we're continuing to advocate and we're continuing to fight for that. So many people will opt for the value of doing private pay, or what's called fee for service, and then possibly submitting for reimbursement from their insurance companies. And that brings me to my conclusion. I hope that you learned 3 things to get you started to know before you go when beginning your mental health journey. I am Crystal Joseph, licensed clinical professional counselor, and approved clinical supervisor in Maryland and Virginia. I'm the owner of Psych Your Mind. Feel free to reach out to me at psychyourmind.com. There's no H on psych. I hope you have a great day.
Have you ever heard these statements or said them yourself? I don't have time to take care of myself. I know I need to slow down and rest, but who else is going to take care of things? I never saw my parents or older generation take a break, so why should I? My family told me I must hustle to fit in with society. I feel guilty about taking time for me. If I slow down, society, my community, and my family will see me as weak. Today, I want to shed light on an important issue that exists within the Black community: the stigma surrounding self-care. Today, we are going to talk about empowering our minds, confronting the stigma, and cultivating self-care. We are going to discuss the impact this stigma has had on the Black community, barriers to self-care, and how we can cultivate self-care within ourselves and within the Black community as a whole. I am Danielle Turner, licensed clinical social worker, best-selling author, speaker, podcast host of the Purple Butterfly podcast, and self-care advocate. I have over 20 years experience in the mental health and wellness field, and I have had my own struggles with lack of self-care that have led to burnout. My mission is to help others in the Black community learn the value of self-care to prevent burnout and other mental health challenges. Self-care, which encompasses activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being, is crucial to maintaining a healthy and balanced life. However, in the Black community, there's often an unjust stigma attached to prioritizing self-care. This stigma surrounds self-care has significant consequences on the well-being of individuals within the community, as well as the community as a whole. It can contribute to increased rates of stress, anxiety, and burnout, which in turn affects physical health and overall quality of life. Moreover, neglecting self-care can hinder personal growth, limit opportunities, and perpetuate the cycle of generational trauma. It is essential that we challenge this stigma and promote a culture of self-care within the Black community. Self-care should be seen as an act of self-love, resilience, and empowerment, rather than selfish or an indulgence. By taking care of ourselves, we become better equipped to address the challenges we face and contribute positively to our families, our communities, and society as a whole. However, to do this, we must first address the barriers to self-care within the Black community. First and foremost, systemic inequalities and historical injustices play a significant role.
The Black community has long faced systemic racism, economic disparities, and limited access to resources and opportunities. These factors create barriers to self-care, as individuals may struggle to meet their basic needs, such as affordable health care, safe living environments, and nutritious food. The resulting stress and challenges can make it difficult to prioritize self-care amidst the daily struggles of survival and upward mobility. Moreover, cultural expectations and societal norms also contribute to barriers surrounding self-care in the Black community. The prevailing narrative of strength and resilience can discourage individuals from seeking help or taking time for themselves. There's often pressure to prioritize the needs of others, whether it's providing for other family members, advocating for injustices, or addressing community issues. This self-sacrificing mindset can prevent individuals from recognizing their own needs and engaging in self-care practices. Furthermore, mental health stigmas also exacerbate the barriers to self-care. In many communities, including the Black community, mental health concerns are often met with silence or denial. Seeking therapy or going to counseling oftentimes are perceived as a sign of weakness or as something reserved for other individuals. This stigma can prevent individuals from accessing the necessary supports and resources to address their mental and emotional overall well-being. So, the question we may need to ask is, how do we cultivate self-care and confront this stigma? To overcome this stigma as a community, we must encourage open conversations about self-care, about mental health, and just overall well-being. We need to provide accessible resources, support networks, and safe spaces for individuals to explore and prioritize self-care practices without fear of being judged. By promoting mental health awareness and education, we can break down this stigma and encourage individuals to seek the support that they need. Additionally, community support and empowerment are crucial. Establishing spaces for open dialogue and sharing of personal experiences can also foster a sense of belonging and encourage self-care practices. Encouraging self-care education, such as teaching mindfulness techniques, stress management, and self-compassion, can empower individuals to prioritize their own needs and their well-being. On an individual scale, practicing practical self-care skills that promote your well-being without compromising your sense of responsibility or connection to your community is possible. You can do this in 5 simple steps. Number 1, set clear boundaries around your time, your energy, and your commitments. Learn to say no when necessary and prioritize activities that replenish your physical, mental, and emotional reserve. Number 2, prioritize self-care activities. So identify self-care practices that resonate with you and fit into your lifestyle. This can include activities such as meditation or exercise, engaging in hobbies, spending time in nature, or seeking therapy or counseling if needed. Make a commitment to incorporate these activities into your daily routine. Number 3, educate yourself. Learn about the benefits of self-care and its positive impact on overall health and productivity. Understand that taking care of yourself is not a luxury, but a necessity for personal growth, resilience, and contributing to your community effectively. Number 4, lead by example. Model healthy self-care habits for others in your community. By prioritizing your own well-being, You demonstrate that self-care is an essential part of a balanced and fulfilling life. Encourage and support others in their self-care journeys, promoting a collective culture of well-being. And number 5, practice self-compassion. Cultivate a mindset of self-compassion by treating yourself with kindness and understanding. Recognize that self-care is not selfish, but a necessity and necessary to practice for your overall well-being. Challenge any negative self-talk or guilt that arises and replace it with affirming and supportive thoughts. I challenge you to slowly add these 5 self-care tips into your daily routine. Include activities like mindfulness, meditation, exercise, and journaling. I invite you to scan the QR code on the screen for self-care journal prompts to get you started on your self-care journey. By practicing self-care without guilt and actively challenging the stigma around self-care, you are not only benefiting yourself, but also contributing to creating a healthier and more supportive community. By advocating for systemic change, challenging cultural expectations, promoting mental health awareness, and fostering community support, we can create an environment that values and prioritizes self-care. Let us work together to redefine the narrative and empower each other to prioritize self-care within the Black community. By doing so, we can strengthen our collective resilience, promote holistic well-being, and pave the way for a happier and healthier future. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Veronica Blakely, and I am a communication skills trainer. However, today I will talk to you about being an entrepreneur and dealing with mental health issues. So get your pen, paper, and get ready to take some notes because I want to share some information with you from my personal experience of how I was to continue within my business while dealing with some depression. I want to say that I am not a clinician, therefore, I will not be able to offer any strong medical advice to you or for you. That is something, of course, you will be able to take on your own at your own leisure. So let's go ahead and get started. For our overview today, I want to talk about some mental health statistics, challenges of entrepreneurship, the depression is a thief, which is an acronym of a book I wrote, and I will explain that to you later. And of course, help is on the way. Let's start off by talking about statistics for mental health. 1 in 5 adults experience some type of mental illness. 1 in 20 adults seriously have mental health issues. And most of it also surrounds itself around anxiety. And that is one of the things I wound up with because of the many life issues I dealt with. Death of family members, job opportunities not available, uh, business not working out as well as I wanted to, and just a cadre of information that actually took place at that time that was out of my control. Therefore, I had chronic anxiety issues, which, of course, as many entrepreneurs, you will have as well. And I want to say that is okay. And I'll talk about how you can get help for those anxiety issues and other things in reference to depression. Let's talk about the different types of depression. First of all, it can be major and severe, where you need to have deep medical attention. It can be persistent, something that is ongoing. And mine was ongoing because I kept having life after life event after another life event while I was trying to also run my business as an entrepreneur. It can be bipolar. In other words, you may be hot one day, cold the next, or you may be positive or you may be negative. It all depends on the situation that you're in. It could be seasonal. There are some people who experience depression during winter months when they do not have an opportunity to get outside as much because it is so cold. Or if you're in areas where the sun does not shine as often and maybe it's raining all the time, your depression could be seasonal. It can also be psychotic, which of course is of the mind, and you don't have control of that. You may need to be hospitalized with additional medical assistance. It could be postpartum for men and women who have gone through depressive states after they have delivered their child. And of course, it can be premenstrual for many women because of the pain that we go through while we are having our menstrual cycle. And of course, it can be situational. You may have one situation that might happen to you, and you have a depressive moment or a psychotic episode, and it's only for that particular situation. And then, of course, after that, it is over. For instance, a loss of a job or the death of a spouse or a family member that was very unexpected. So that situation may happen at that one particular time, and then after that, you might be able to go on with your life as well as with your family and friends, and also within your business. But let's talk about how you show up in your business as an entrepreneur, no matter what type of situation you're dealing with. Many of us remember this post from Queen Latifah during the pandemic, so that we think about the time when we are on the Zoom call, we have our hair done, we have our makeup on, and we're looking wonderful and flashy. But when we're on a phone call, we're looking like we are at the movie Set It Off. But what you want to do to make sure that you show up as your full self, no matter what the situation might be, you want to make sure that you are well prepared and dressed for that opportunity so that you feel good and you can exude that to your customers while you're talking with them on the phone, whether you are virtual or whether you're live or whether you are on a phone call. You are representing yourself even if that person cannot see you, and it will come through in your voice. So let's talk about depression being a thief, which again I said was from this book that I wrote years ago. And I realized that some things had been taken away from me I was not aware of until I sat down and wrote about it. Let's talk about the time and how we can recover that time. You want to make sure that you set daily, weekly, and monthly goals and keep a journal of that information. My health was really deteriorating. I had gained a lot of weight because I had started eating foods that were not healthy for me, but I had to learn how to try to meditate. And meditation is very difficult. And therefore, what I usually do is taking 3 deep breaths sometimes and inhaling and breathing out is my form of meditation because I'm not fully able to meditate like some people can do. But I also sought medical help. And I suggest you do the same. And to take your medication, I took the medication. It helped me tremendously. And even to this day, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I am still on anxiety medication at a very low dose, but it helps me cope every day. And I feel pretty good about myself as well as about my business. Intimacy with friends and family members, it just kind of went away because I just didn't feel like seeing anybody. But I suggest you reconnect with those friends and family members, and whether or not you have a significant other, prepare yourself for the opportunity of when you do have another significant other in your life so that you will be ready and prepared to take on that relationship. And there should be a person who is positive about your business as opposed to being negative about your business. The energy level I had was really low. So I had to learn how to sleep even when I didn't want to and get the rest that I needed. I had to go back to exercising, which was really the thing I used to do as well as teach exercise classes. Then I had to learn how to, of course, eat right. Breyer's ice cream is one of my favorite things, but I can't have it every day because I would be as big as a blimp. So your energy level depends on your sleep, exercise, and your food intake. And then the F is for fun. Try to socialize with people who you have not seen before. It may have to be a forced opportunity with family and friends, maybe going to the movie, going out for coffee, or sitting and having lunch with a close friend. Get some outside activity so you can get the sun. And if you're not in an area where the sun is shining, just be outside where you can feel the wind blowing on you so that you can feel good about yourself. And smile. When you smile, your body doesn't know that you're really not happy at that moment in time, that you're really faking it out. But those endorphins actually automatically make you feel good. So smile. But of course, I want you to avoid brain drain, things such as TV programs that are not a of benefit to you, and just mind-boggling things that really just kind of set you back and put you in a negative space. Avoid the internet where you're trolling on websites as well as looking at videos on a consistent basis that again are not of benefit to you. And stay away from toxic relationships, friends, family, and other situations that will not help you move forward in your business, to help you with yourself, with your client, and with your customers, and with your business overall. So depression may be a thief to steal things from you, but you can take those things back by making sure that you have a positive and proactive view on yourself as well as on your business. These are some solutions. Don't panic. You are not alone. You want to keep your website current so that people know that you are still in business. And even when I was not having any business, I had to pay my annual corporate fee so that people would know that I was legitimate. And you want to network with other individuals at many different events. Keep a journal of your progress so that you can see how well you're doing. This is where I am now. This is where I was, but this is where I want to be. And so I want you to take a screenshot of these opportunities where you can contact professionals who will be able to help and assist you if you need to seek out help. Therapy is fine. Don't let anyone tell you that you will only need therapy if you're really crazy. No, you need therapy sometimes just to get you through the regular part of your day. And if you need severe help, of course, call 911. You can reach out to me at my website at www.vblakely.com. You can book me for a discovery call, workshop, or conference. And of course, I have a free download at my website for 10 tips for effective communication. My name is Veronica Blakely. I'm a communication skills trainer. If you can speak it, I can tweak it. Thank you.
My name is Zahara Williams. I am a speaker and licensed therapist. And in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I am here to talk to you all today about permission to grieve. Now, before I get into how we get to the place of healthy grieving, being able to identify unhealthy patterns, and the cultural implications and how they influence how we show up in the grief experience, I want to share briefly my own experience. Approximately 20-ish years ago, while I was in graduate school waiting for class to start and working on a paper, I received a phone call that said my grandmother was being rushed to the hospital and it was not good. So I jumped in my vehicle, hopped on 94, and drove straight from Ann Arbor to Detroit. And as I was pulling into the parking lot, I received another call that said, she's gone. I was overwhelmed, flooded with emotions, from doubt to anger to even some guilt. See, I had made a couple of promises over the last couple of months saying things that I would do for my grandmother, and she called me a time or two. Are you going to get to that? When are you going to do that for me? And I said, Grandma, I'm going to get to it. Don't worry, I got you. But I didn't. I didn't prioritize those things. And it wasn't because I was, so busy in hindsight. I thought I had time. I thought I had time. So there was a valuable lesson learned in that first experience with grief. And as life would have it, there would be many more experiences with grief, and not all in the form of loss of a loved one. See, grief shows up as a result of a myriad of life experiences, from a physical injury and the inability to do physically what one has become accustomed to, and adjusting to that is a loss. It shows up when individuals have been married for 2 years or 20 years and they are now getting a divorce. That is a loss. It shows up when someone has been at a job that they have loved and committed themselves to for 20 years and they have gotten laid off. That is a loss. And as much as we learn about retaining things, achieving things, one of the fundamental aspects of life is that just as we are born, we will also die. And we spend so much time in school learning about math, science, and reading, roughly 13 years for most people to be exact. But one of the fundamental things is that we will experience loss. And where would you have learned how to navigate that? See, most people, when they experience loss, they hear these sentiments that have been passed on. Pray about it. Give it time. They're in a better place. And the response is sometimes thank you. But how many people feel like those sentiments have been helpful for them on their grief journey? Most people will say no. That it doesn't offer them any comfort, any resolve, particularly if there were things that were unsaid and things that were not done. And so we find ourselves in a perpetual cycle, but one thing is true, just as an individual hasn't necessarily learned how to grieve, the individuals that are attempting to show up to support you haven't learned how to support you, because they also have not learned how to grieve and navigate that space. And then there are times where individuals talk themselves out of support. They make what I call unilateral decisions about someone else's capacity to show up for them. They don't have time. They're dealing with their own life. I don't want to burden them. And if you all made those comments, even if they're internally, about rationalizing why you haven't sought support. So we find ourselves talking ourselves out of getting support, but then also feeling isolated, feeling guarded, not sure who you can trust, not sure if you should even be vulnerable and open up, because if you are, there is a possibility that you will experience loss again. And who wants to subject themselves to that? Not many will sign up and say, here, I'm okay with experiencing grief. I'm okay with loss. No, there are obviously exceptions to every rule, and some people are able to roll with it differently because of their mindset, because of how they were raised. But many people don't want to sign up for pain. But when it's an inevitable part of the life journey, it's not that you're signing up for it, but you're saying, I need to learn how to navigate this in a way that it doesn't feel so heavy and weighted down for me. So there are a couple of things I want to share with you. One, you, to some degree, are an expert in what you need, what will help you feel better. So rather than waiting for someone to call, you can reach out and say, I just need somebody to sit with me. I need somebody to get me out the house because I find myself ruminating, constantly thinking about the loss, and that's not healthy for me. Reach out. And it may not be to the individuals that you desire it to be. So that's a whole nother story about expectations. Sometimes you are the support for individuals who do not have the capacity to support you. But because we are so focused on that closed door, then we don't necessarily see the open ones and the other places and that are able to show up and support you in the way that you need, and being open to that, because it doesn't look like what you had in mind. That's another story for another day. Other ways you can navigate grief is to honor the memory of your loved one. For some, that looks like they are learning to cook that favorite meal or bake that pie, and they do that in memory of that loved one because they remember being in the kitchen with them. Some do that in the form of volunteering. Some do that in the form of giving something to charity and writing it in the name, whether it's books or whatever it is that that person really loved to do. Those are ways that you can honor. For some, it's starting a garden because their loved one started a garden. So every time they go out and they plant and they look at those flowers, it reminds them of the beauty of that life experience that's no longer here. Because what happens in grief for some is that they become so tunnel vision on the loss, the void, that they forget this person lived a whole life. Now, it is true that not every experience with grief is one of celebration, because some people had bad experiences, if we're honest, with their loved one, and there were things that they wanted to say and resolve that needed to happen. But there are some lessons also in grief. So what has it taught you? What have you gained? And I'm not talking about isolation and being guarded. What have you gained from the experience? Whether it's to be more mindful of your health, to tell people that you love them, to go after your goals because time is limited. What have you gained and how have you applied that to your life? Don't let the loss be in vain. Now, that's just a snippet of information for the sake of time. And so if you'd like to know more, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Zahara, Zahara, Rain, Rayne. Or if you're interested in a speaking opportunity, greetings, Greetings at ZaharaRain.com. It has been a pleasure, and I hope that you gain some valuable information that will help you on this grief journey.
All right, and there you have it. Thank you so much again for joining us for this session of the Black Mental Health Speaker Series. Now, remember, this is just one session of our 6-part series, so be sure to tap in for all the remaining sessions. To make it easy, you can just subscribe to the Black Speakers Network channel on YouTube. Be sure to hit that notification bell and be the first to know when future sessions are shared. I think it's safe to agree that the insights, experiences, and expertise shared today by our speakers in the mental health space have been nothing short of enlightening. So I want to thank all of our speakers once again. As we close for now, remember that the conversation doesn't have to end here. We encourage you to take these conversations, these thoughts, these ideas, go back into your communities, into your companies, and continue the conversation. As you have heard earlier, the speaker series just represents a small fraction of the wealth and the opportunities right here at Black Speakers Network. And so if you are a current or aspiring professional speaker and you're looking for your next stage, look no further. I invite you to join the Black Speakers Network community. You can get more information at blackspeakersnetwork.com/join. Now, if you are a meeting planner, you're a conference organizer, you have an event coming up and you're looking for the perfect speaker to impact your audience, again, look no further. We would love to connect you. You could browse our online directory of speakers right now at blackspeakersnetwork.com, or you can submit a speaker request and we will make sure you are covered for your next event. That's live or virtual, or in person or virtual. But that is it. Goodbye for now. And thank you once again for joining the Black Mental Health Speaker